Well, hello again. Welcome to another conversation. When we last left off, we were talking about pyramids, slaves, and who built the pyramids. The professor was saying that the pyramids were not built by slaves, and that pyramid building was similar to, I would say, similar to any modern technology, whereas knowledge of how to build things progresses. You rebuild that same thing, but you do it better than the previous builders did it. So you had what he called mastabas, and then you went to step pyramids, and then you went to the bent pyramid, and then you went to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, of course, there was a lot of time passed between all these structures, and there were some mistakes made. But like he said, pyramid building evolved. It got better, grander over time. So, with that being said, let's find out, how do you build a pyramid?
Right, the base is 13 and a half acres. The prevailing theory is that you use basically something like a carpenter's bubble. You know the carpenter's bubble that they use, they put on top of a bookshelf and you can see if it's level when the bubble is showing. What they probably did is within those 13 acres, the base, that square base, 13 and a half acres, they dug channels. And in the channels, they filled it with water. Now, wherever the water would run out, you know that that's lower than the rest of the base. So you keep leveling, digging channels, leveling, till the water pretty much stays in, then you know you've got a level base, like a carpenter's. And it's very level, by the way. There have been very careful surveys done recently of the Great Pyramid's base. And you want to know how level it is? Now, 13 and a half acres. From one corner to the other, it never varies by more than 2 inches. Over 13 and a half acres. That's precision. But let me emphasize, it's precision. It's great workmanship. It's not high tech. You don't need higher mathematics to build a pyramid. Well, we've got the foundation leveled. What can we say about the inside of the pyramid? Well, how do you bring all these blocks to the site? First of all, you don't have to bring a lot of them to the site. The quarries were right around the pyramid. Most of the quarries, and you can to this day walk around the pyramid and see the quarries. You can see places where stones were pulled out. So a lot of the stonework in the pyramid comes from right around. It saves transportation costs. You don't have to transport so many blocks. The very finest limestone for the casing, for that smooth outer surface, that came from a little bit of ways. It was floated across the Nile and then hauled into place. Now, the inside of the Great Pyramid is a marvel. It really is. By the way, there are 2 entrances. If you go to the Great Pyramid, you will see that there are really 2 entrances. One entrance is a thieves' entrance. The pyramid's entrance was covered over with the white limestone, right? Nobody knew where the entrance was, even in ancient times. In the 9th century, the Caliph Al-Mamun, and we hear about him in the 1001 Nights, the Arabian Tales. We hear about him and it says that he wanted to rob the Great Pyramid, but didn't know where the entrance was. So we put workmen chiseling away at the outside of the pyramid. And they kept chiseling and nothing happened. And eventually they tried to do it faster. And what they did was they took fires. They built fires on the pyramid and doused it with cold water and cracking the stones. They kept removing stones, removing more stones. They were about to give up when one of the workmen heard a sound inside of a stone falling. So they knew they'd hit a hollow chamber. And according to the 1001 Nights, they went in and they found not much treasure, just enough treasure to pay the workmen. It's of course a story, but probably it is true that in the 9th century, they did indeed, or around there, they did indeed enter the Great Pyramid. That is the entrance, by the way. the the 9th century robbers entrance that tourists go into today. You don't go into the original entrance. That's higher up. That's sealed off. But that's the way that tourists now go in through where the robbers went in. Now, what's it like inside the pyramid? Well, the pyramid underwent changes as it was being built. There were changes in the plan. Originally, there was going to be a below-ground burial. There's an unfinished pit. It goes down. It's a big chamber beneath the ground, unfinished. You can still see the rock, the bedrock, crude bedrock, unfinished. Khufu's burial was above ground, way up in the pyramid, way up. Now, how do you get that high up? Well, there's a remarkable passageway to get to the burial chamber. It's called the Grand Gallery. It's a room that is still being debated as to what was it used for. It's 28 feet high. It's narrow. It's corbelled roofs again, remember? Sneffer is the one who figures out to use a corbelled roof. 28 feet high, maybe 10 feet wide, perhaps. And it goes all the way up the pyramid, inside. Nobody knows exactly why it was built. Some people think that they stored blocks in that Grand Gallery that were going to be slid down and seal the entranceway. Because there are large granite blocks that were slid down and plug the entranceway. But you go up this Grand Gallery, and then you come to the burial chamber. Now, there are a couple of puzzles about the burial chamber. One, inside the burial chamber is the sarcophagus, the stone sarcophagus of Khufu. The only thing ever found inside the burial chamber. It once had a lid that slid. We can tell that from the sarcophagus, but that's all that's there. No body was found, no inscription in the burial chamber, right? But that sarcophagus is about 2 inches wider than the doorway that leads to the burial chamber. It's one piece of stone, the sarcophagus, but it's 2 inches wider than the doorway. Now, what that means is they put the sarcophagus in the burial chamber before the pyramid was complete. It was probably an attempt to avoid tomb robbing, that the robbers couldn't drag the sarcophagus out. So they put it in, and then they built the chamber around it. Now, the other interesting thing about the burial chamber is the ceiling. You remember that Sneferu, Khufu's father, solved the problem of the roof. How do you build a roof that doesn't crack with the weight of the pyramid above it? By corbelling. Steps going inward, all the way to the top of the ceiling. When you go into this burial chamber, there's no corbelling. It's big slabs of granite going across the top. Now, how come they don't crack? It's got the weight of the pyramid above it. Well, Khufu took it one further. He has an interesting solution to the problem. It's relieving chambers. If you could get in, and I've done it, it's not easy. You have to crawl in through a hole outside. If you can get above the burial chamber, there's a tiny chamber called the relieving chamber. It's really small. I had to crouch. You can't stand up. You can't even bend over. You really have to kind of crawl in and crouch. It's a chamber that's only about, maybe must be 4 feet high. And that takes some of the pressure off the ceiling. And above that is another relieving chamber, and above that's another relieving chamber. And all the way at the top of that, above the relieving chambers, are 2 huge blocks of stone forming a triangle, an inverted triangle, like a pyramid sort of. That takes the pressure off the relieving chambers. So all the force of the weight above the pyramid is distributed through the pyramid away from the ceiling. It's a little bit like a corbelled step ceiling, only smoothed out into the form of this inverted V, a triangle. So the relieving chamber solves the problem of the weight weighting down on the ceiling of the burial chamber so it doesn't collapse. Right. Now, there's some very interesting questions about the Great Pyramid. How do you get the stones all the way up to the top? It's too steep to pull up a pyramid. How do you do that? A stone weighing maybe 3 tons. There are 2 theories. One theory is the ramp theory, that you build a long ramp and the stones are hauled up the ramp, and once you finish the pyramid, you remove the ramp. Now, for something the size of the Great Pyramid, to build, you're going 480 feet up in the air, the ramp would have to be more than a quarter of a mile long. The ramp would be a major engineering project. But we do know they used ramps, because at Karnak Temple, against one of the walls, is a mud brick ramp that they used to get blocks up. So maybe they used that technique. The other possibility is what we call a switchback. It's, you know how when you go up a mountain road, your car is corkscrewing up the road? It doesn't go straight up the mountain. It goes around and around and around. That's the technique they may have used for getting the blocks up to the top. They may have had the equivalent of a switch block road, sort of corkscrewing up around the pyramid till you get the blocks up, and then you start filling in. There are two theories. We don't know really which for sure. But the point I want to make is it didn't take higher mathematics to do this. It takes careful measurement. For example, another careful measurement. The sides of the Great Pyramid are perfectly aligned on the 4 compass points: north, south, east, west. Egyptians knew how to do that by careful observation of the stars. They could do that with the North Star. So you could do that. All of this required great workmanship, but not high-tech stuff. For example, some of the limestone casing blocks are still in place. You cannot fit a piece of paper between them. They are so perfectly fitted. That's remarkable. It's wonderful craftsmanship, especially on something that large. And think about it. All of it was done within 22 years, the reign of Khufu. A remarkable achievement. Also, but I think the amazing achievement is the social organization. You had to have men at the quarries, quarrying. You had to have shipping guys. You had to have guys polishing stones. All of that, coordinating everybody to work on it, that's amazing. I mean, especially if you compare it with our society. How often do we undertake a project that we say, well, it'll take 20 years, but let's see how it goes? Not very often. That's why you can do great things if you have a pharaoh, a god on earth with absolute power. But that's the Great Pyramid of Giza.
All right. Well, that was interesting. Anybody that is interested in architect might find this video very informative. I don't know what else to say. I did not know how many steps was really involved in building the pyramid. And he didn't just mention that. He also mentioned being able to gather large workforces together and to have that workforce broke down into teams. One team does the quarrying, one team polishes up the stones, and they all just, at the end, the finished product was beautiful. It really was beautiful. So it takes a true leader and a person who understands people to pull off a feat like that. And they didn't rush it. They took their time and they did it to the best of their ability. It might have took 22 years, but hey, it's gonna last an eternity. So yeah, kudos to ancient Egyptians. And on that note, I'm gonna talk to you later.